All right, in this video, we're going to take a look at the following problem. It says use the model view controller pattern, or using the model view controller pattern, write a JavaFX application that allows the user to enter the lengths of two legs of a right triangle and then calculates and displays the length of the hypotenuse. The application should also display the result of previous calculations in reverse chronological order. So the newest ones first. And then all of the information entered by the user should be stored in the model classes. So all of the information. All right, so so the first thing I'm going to do is work on the scene itself. So I'm just going to go with a pane here. And then I'm going to need a couple of labels. A couple of text fields. And a text area. Okay, and so on this label, I'm going to put, change the text to A, and then move that back over a little bit. Oops, I didn't want to do that. On this label, I'm going to change the text to B, and then move it over a little bit as well. All right, this text field here I'm going to need to control because I'm going to need to get whatever the user enters in there. So I'm going to call it A field. And I'm going to say set the on action to handle text field. Remember, that's the method that's going to be called when the user presses enter inside that text field there. All right, and then going to do the same thing over for the other text field. I'm going to call it B field. And I'm going to use that same method, handle text field. Like so. All right, and then for the text area, I'm going to give it an FXID text area. All right. And then I am going to set the controller. So I'm going to call mine Pythagorean controller. And then I'm going to save that. Next up, I am going to get the controller skeleton. And then I'm going to do save as, and just save it. And then I'm going to compile the controller. So that looks okay. Okay, so they don't say anything else about any other controls that we need in there, so that looks good to me. All right, next up I'm going to start on the main app part itself. So that's import javafx.application.application, import javafx.stage.stage, import javafx.scene.scene, import javafx.scene.layout.pane, import javafx.fxml.fxmlloader, and java.io.ioException. All right, and then make the class Pythagorean app, and that's going to extend application to make it a child class of the application class, and then implement the start method. Create your root component using fxml loader dot load method, and then it's get class dot get resource, and then the name of your fxml file in there. Okay, and then create the scene using that root component. And set the scene using that newly created scene. I'm going to put a title on mine. And then stage.show. Let's see. Spelled XML wrong. Switch the X and the M. Then I have an unchecked checked exception. So I must catch or declare it. So I'm just going to declare it. All right, so there's what I've got. Next up, I want to implement the controller part here. So what I need to do is to get the values out of those text fields that the user enters. So that's a field dot get text. B field dot get text, and then I need to convert those. I'm going to convert them to doubles. So that's double dot parse double. So I'm going to convert those to double values. Next up, I'm going to calculate C, and that's going to be math.sqrt a squared, which I'm just going to do as a times a, plus b squared, which I'm just going to do as b times b. All right, and then I want to put the results in the into that text area itself. All right, so to do that, it would be text area dot set text, and then however you want to do that, string dot format. And we could do something like a colon percent comma point to f, b colon space percent comma point to f space c percent comma point to f, and I have a, b, and c in there. Okay, so let's run. All right, so if I do 3 and 4, I should get that C is 5. Right? If I do 5 and 12, I should get C is 13, which I do there. So one thing here is that it doesn't display all of the calculations in here, just the most recent one. So we'll need to fix that. One way we could fix that, right, is to, as it stands, is to just do something like this and do set text, and then plus text area dot get text. So get the text that's already in the text area out, right, and then put it in, and then add the new stuff on top of it, and then put it back into the text box is what's going on there. Okay, so if we do 3 and 4, right, we get 5. If we do 5 and 12, we get 13. And it's all kind of printing it on one line, so let's fix that. So just add a /n there, and that should fix that, a new line character to make it go down a line. So if I do 5, 12, I get 13, and then 3 and 4 to get 5, and so on and so forth, like that. Okay, so you can see it's working there, but when I enter some letters like that, you can see it's going to cause problems here. So I get this number format exception, right, for input string ASDF here. So what I'm going to do is and you can see where that's happening, right, in the controller in line 21. That's right here when I go to convert these two things over. So what I'm going to do is to put those in a try block. And then have a catch block, number format exception E. And then here what I'm going to do is to display some message, text area dot set text, and then invalid input. So give the user some warning about that. And then the next thing after I display that message, I want to return. I don't want to keep going and make these calculations here. The one issue, right, that's going to give is that we're going to get those cannot find symbol errors, right? We need to move the declaration for A and B up higher before we go into the catch block, and then, or the try block, and then get rid of the types. So it's just an assignment statement, not a declaration statement. So that should make it so that we don't have any errors when the user enters invalid input or non-numeric input. Right, you can see I get that. However, there's a problem with that, and that is if I have some history in here, it kind of tags along with that. And then if I enter invalid input, right, then all of it's gone. It's disappeared, no more. I can't get it back. So that's also an issue there. But we'll fix that issue with the model part of it. Okay. All right. So for the model, this one is a little bit more complicated, right? Because I want all of the information entered by the user, right? And in addition to the stuff about the triangles in there, okay? So what I'm going to do is to make a couple of classes. Number one, for the model, I'm going to make a triangle class. And in that triangle class, I'm going to have 3 fields. I'm going to have a constructor. and a toString in there. And in that toString, that's where I want to put this string.format that I had here before, or at least that part of it. And I forgot a semicolon there. And let's see, where am I at here? Missing return. Oh, I forgot the return. Okay, so there we go. We have a place to store all those values, A, B, and C, and we can do many different triangles, right, by just making an object for each triangle that we've got there. All right, and so now for the other part of the model, what I want is just a list of those. So I'm going to make a class called Pythagorean model. And this is going to have an array list of triangles in there. As a field. And in the constructor, I want to initialize that array list. And I'm going to need to import java.util.arraylist. All right, and then for this one, right, I'm going to need a way to add new triangles into this list from the controller, right? And so for that, what I want to do is to have just a method in here, public void add triangle. And to do that, it's just going to be triangles.add triangle. And then the other thing I want to do is, based on the triangles in this list, right, I want to return a string, right, that consists of all of the toStrings of the triangles in this list. So basically a printout, right, of all of the triangles in this list here. So I'm going to do that with a toString. So public string toString. For that one, right, what I'm going to do is to build up a list. And so to do that, I'm going to declare a string called out, which is the empty string, and then set up a for loop, right, and then kind of do the same thing I was doing over there with the toString. I'm going to add a new line character, and then actually it needs to go the other way. Actually, let's just do it this way, the way I had it, and we'll fix it later. Triangle.toString. So this will, for each triangle in this list, it will call the toString, right? So the string representation of that triangle, and add it to this string. So after you go through this for loop, then that we'll basically have all of the information for all of the triangles. And then we just need to return out there. Okay, so far so good. All right, now what we need to do is to have the controller now use that information here. So we'll calculate get A and B and C like we did before, right? And then what we'll do is in the model, well, the controller has to be able to access the model, right? So we need to make a new field up here. And we also need to initialize that model, right? And so the way we're going to do that is with the initialize method, public void initialize, and make sure you mark it with at fxml tag, and do model equals new Pythagorean model. So because the constructor over here, we could try and add a constructor to initialize this field, but it will never get called, right? Because of the way these apps are set up. And so we put it in this initialize method, mark this with the add fxml tag. So that will set up the model. It won't be null in that case. Okay, and so then what we need to do is we calculate the value for C, right? At that point we have a triangle, right? So we can do model.add triangle, and we put that triangle into the, make a new triangle with A, B, and C, and that will put it into the model. So that triangle goes into the model. And then what we need to do is to tell the text area to update itself. So the controller says to the text area, hey, you need to update yourself with the new information. And that is going to be from the toString. So that's going to be model.toString here. Okay. All right, so let's test that out and see that it's working. All right, so I'm going to start off with the 3 and the 4, and I get that. Next, I'm going to do 5, 12. All right, one thing is it's going backwards here. I want that 5, 12, and 13 to be above, right? But it's not, it's below. So I'm going to need to fix that. Let's do 5 and 6. All right, so far so good. So next up I am going to enter some letters, and then it should clear all of this and say invalid input in here, right? But when I do a new valid input in here, it should have all 4. It should have these 3 plus the new one in there. So there we go, invalid input. So now if I type some valid input in there and hit enter, right, it should have all 4 of those, and you can see that it does. Okay. So everything, right, entered by the user is contained in the model there. And so I have a history of what's going on here in the app. Okay, so to fix this situation where it's printing it this way, what I need to do is to add at the beginning. So in order to add at the beginning of the list over here, I need to put 0, comma, triangle. So that will add at index 0. That probably means, right, we should change this list to another type of list, which is more efficient, but that's not something that we've really talked about in our class. So I'm going to compile that and then go back and just double check that everything is working. So 3, 4, 5. So now I'll do 5 and 12. That should add now above the 3, 4, 5. If I do invalid input, should get that, and then nine, 12, 15, right? You can see that's up at the top. So that's exactly what I wanted. Okay, so that is it for this one.